Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Conroy-Roth, and you are watching the latest episode of Lightning Leadership. With me is my good friend, Renu Ramankutty. Renu and I have worked together for the last 12 years at Axia Consulting, now Huron Consulting. Absolutely love working with her. We've been able to bounce ideas off and on, been able to kind of share concepts and encourage each other along the way. So with that, Renu, welcome to Lightning Leadership.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. So tell us about your Zap moment. When did you first realize that you were a leader?
Well, I have to go back to my high school days, I think, Teresa. I mean, I really was an introvert so long ago, and I did not want to get engaged with stuff. And, looking back, all credit to my high school science teacher, Susan John, who nominated me for a leadership position. And, sometimes I go back and say whether fortunately or unfortunately, I got elected to the group leader. It kind of forced me into taking opportunities, taking decisions, working with a group of people, being comfortable, being uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
And once I started going with it and kind of everybody embraced me and I embraced it, I think I realized it's kind of fun. It's
Yeah.
a lot of fun. And especially like when you're out in the front, you have a clear view of which path you want to take. And when you have a group of folks, a team that follows you and kind of aligns with you, or even contradicts you, right? And then kind of you steer in different directions. I think that was probably my zap moment. And I kind of translated that as I went into my college time frame and even into my career when I started my career. So I guess you could call that my zap moment.
Good deal. You mentioned something, and it's going to be the topic of our conversations today, which is really charting your own course. You and I have that in common as far as our backgrounds kind of being laid out for us, and at kind of at an early stage, saying no, I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to go do this, right? And I'd love for you to share your stories on charting your own path. Tell me, give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, coming into the IT industry was more by accident. I mean, once I started my course, I loved it. And then coming into consulting was even more of an accident. I was thrown into it. And then it was such a challenge. And I have a habit of, when people say, oh, you can't do it, I kind of feel like, oh, I can. So, when you first get into consulting, it's a challenging environment.
Yeah.
And when I got into that, I'm like, oh, this is great. But then, like, how do you grow into it? And how do you find the right path? How do you find the right mentors? And how do you find the right, partners to work with, work wise, and everything to grow into that?
Hmm.
I think that's where the biggest challenge was. And, my nature of not taking no for an answer kind of helped me along the course because I went and said, okay, then if somebody thinks I can't do it, then I'm going to go get the certification for it. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to study it and prove that I can.
Hmm.
And I think somewhere along the way, I think organizations wise realized, well, let's just throw that over to Renu because I think she'll go figure it out.
Yeah.
And I kind of embraced that, kind of the underdog, whatever the role is. And I kind of found that as a challenge. And sometimes I think there were people that threw stuff my way thinking, oh, it's surely going to fail and we can prove her wrong.
Yeah.
And it motivated me even more. So, and I've always embraced a challenge and I've always loved it. And I've always taken on new things. So it's been fun. So that's kind of where I've charted my own path. Like Teresa, you've come into your role in from different paths, and here
Yes.
you are enabling using social media technology in many different ways that you probably wouldn't have thought of using 10 years ago, right? To do what you're
Yes.
doing so successfully.
Thank you so much. Actually, it was one of those scenarios where I had the idea for it, wanted to see just a diverse group of topics and a diverse group of people, and I wanted someone else to do it. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until someone came back and said, "No, I think you should do it." And I was like, "No, it's not the right time, right? I don't, it's not this, it's not that." And I had all of these reasons. And then finally I was just like, "Yeah, why don't I do it? Let's just try." Right. And so that was my catchphrase for 2024. My catchphrase for 2025 is believe in yourself. And I think it's just that continuation of moving forward into uncomfortable spaces because
Yeah.
someone says that you couldn't or you shouldn't. I was like, well, let me show you what I can do. And I think
Cool.
that's so important at any
It
stage of
is.
life.
And again, and I think it goes back to, Well, if something doesn't fit and something is not the way you want it to be, my belief is then change the mold, right? Change the
Yeah.
mold that it has to fit into. If it needs to expand, if it needs to be a square instead of a round, if it needs to be a round instead of a square, right?
Yep.
And every person, I think, has the opportunity and the chance to do it. And you have to take that chance and do it. Now, yeah, sometimes it might fail, sometimes it may not succeed, but you learn from it and you figure out how to adjust the mold. It may need to be an oval.
Yeah.
So I always say, be the catalyst that you want to be in an organization, in a relationship, in life, when you're working with a varied group of people with different interests, different backgrounds, right? Be the catalyst that can suggest a change, that can ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask that question that might bring in more information, more thoughts, more ideas.
Yeah. I think number one, I think one of the things that I kind of brought with me in my own career was being inquisitive, right? Being
Yeah,
genuinely interested in other people, being genuinely interested in the process, being genuinely interested in the problem, right? And asking those questions. I don't have to know everything, but tell me if I don't know, right? Help me understand. And that can come from a multitude of peoples and a multitude of sources. One of the things you said struck me, and I kind of pretty much say it every day, right? Which was every day you get a blank piece of paper, every day,
yeah,
and you get to figure out what that day is going to look like for you. And if you mess up today, you get a blank piece of paper tomorrow,
yes,
right? And so whether or not it's in your life, whether or not it's in your career, whether or not it's in your relationships, both work relationships and personal relationships, you get a brand new start every single day, and that's
correct.
huge. And once you kind of get over that, then it's really fun.
It is. It is. And then I think then nothing kind of stops you, right? You're not
So,
fearful of anything. I mean, it's like, yeah, so what? I've done that, didn't work, try something new and it'll work, right?
does that mean? But that's a level of confidence, right? That and wisdom that you build over time. Did you have that early on?
No, heck not. I mean, I was some days it was like being a bull in the china shop, right? And you go
Oh,
in and you're like, oh, yeah, broke a few things. And then slowly you realize that you've got to control the pace of how you do things, control the tone of how you do things, and
yeah.
control the environment in which and calibrate for the environment you're in. And then once you figure that out, I think that's the wisdom that comes with experience with taking a beating every once in a while,
Mm,
right? And then you come with that, and then you kind of learn with it. And sometimes it also teaches you to not let it bother you. Yeah, stuff happens. Sometimes things don't work out. You don't have to take it to heart and go to sleep, mourning about it. Wake up
yeah.
and try a different approach.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've learned along the way is that, and then this is a friend of mine named Lynn Murphy, had shared this with me, and it had to do with a stress bucket. In some cases, depending on what's happening in your life, what's happening with your family, what's happening in your interpersonal world, right? You have a stress bucket. And sometimes the stress bucket's larger, and sometimes the stress bucket's smaller. And there's only so many things that can go in, and there's only so many things that can go out, right? And so understanding what your stress bucket is, right? Making sure that you're eating right, you're getting your sleep, you're working out, you're taking care of yourself. So your stress bucket can have have integrations as well as some kind of
Mhm.
exits. And so I think that was kind of a lesson learned along the way, for me, of recognizing that yes, at different times of my life and at different stages of my career, my stress bucket was large, sometimes it was small, sometimes the role that I was in, you had the control, you had the influence, and other times there were things that you were doing to gain, and make it larger or smaller. And so there's, just so many lessons along the way.
Yeah, and the wisdom you talked about, right? It kind of helps you kind of navigate through those times
Yes.
better because you're like, okay, this is a day I just need to take a step back and let my body and my mind heal, you know, and I can be a better person and a better teammate and a better partner the next day, right? So it kind of yeah, the lessons learned, the wisdom that I like to call it more wisdom than lessons learned because I think wisdom is kind of I think there is a emotional approach to it too because wisdom comes with that. Lessons learned, I feel, is like so black and white, and you take something.
Yeah, I like that.
So, but that's the way. And the other thing is, I think to relate to that, life is not a popularity contest, right? I mean, you
No.
don't have to be the winner every day. You don't have to be the person that is screaming the loudest every day. None of that matters to me, right? I mean, it's like as long as you can get stuff done and you move on, that's the fun part, right? And you're often confronted with people that want to be the loudest, that want to be the the biggest, and it really doesn't resonate with me. And so it's like, yeah, it doesn't have to be a popularity contest. And I think that's one of the stuff that a lot of folks that we work with have realized. I mean, I've been blessed to work with a lot of folks that realize that and understand that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sometimes it's about just doing a great job.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And I think because, and I know you and I worked together for a long time, and because of that longevity, there's levels of trust, right?
yes,
We've proven ourselves, we understand the relationships. I understand your strengths, you understand mine, right? But we also understood what we've overcome, both in
yes,
many cases individually as well as together, on being on multiple different teams, right? And sharing
right.
some of those same experiences, but also have very different ways of looking at things sometimes. And so
Yeah.
with that is a great some great metaphors in there.
Yes, and like you are looking at it, I mean, what I've learned from you is that you're, an like very, very good at sales and what you do and interacting with people, right? And some of us that come from the technology side is not fully in tune with all of the nuances that come with it, right? And how do you approach it? And so when you've done sessions on how to use social media effectively and things like that, that's a wake up call for a lot of us, right? Because we're very much in our day-to-day activities with work and stuff. So I've learned a lot from you in terms of some of the stuff that you've shared with us as a group.
Thanks so much. I mean, but ultimately, I think I'm relationship driven, right? I happen to love people. I love talking to people, and I love learning about people. And so when social media kind of first came onto the scene, that was, yeah, it's a give get, right? It's a push pull. But it's always, I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at people's profiles and their backgrounds before I start a conversation, just because
Yeah,
it helps me kind of set the guardrails.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, there's so much more you can do with social media, and
Mhm.
there's so much more. And I think, yeah, it's a lot of challenge. It's a lot of good and the bad together.
Well, it's let's say it's different, right?
Yes,
It has to be. I mean, your marketing and branding, right? Social media between LinkedIn or Facebook. If you're a professional environment, you're constantly marketing and branding, and that's okay. I'm not going to put my deepest, darkest secrets right out on social media. Sorry,
correct.
sorry, anybody that thinks that they're going to get that today, they're just not. But it's fun, right? Because
It is.
a glimpse of someone enough that if you want to reach out to them and gather some more information or to build that relationship, you can.
Correct.
So thank you so much for joining me. I greatly
This
appreciate
is
it.
such a pleasure. Thank you for having me on your show. It's such a privilege.
Apps. Oh my goodness. I've admired you for so long, and I just think that you're the best. So thank you so much. For those of you that are following along at home, if you'd like to reach out to Renew, please do so on LinkedIn. If you're seeing this on LinkedIn, please feel free to like, comment, or share. If you're seeing on YouTube, again, please feel free to like or comment. And then we're also on Spotify. Renu Ramankutty, thank you again. Until next time,
See you
stay.
soon,
All
Teresa.
right, bye bye.
Bye.